Hello, and welcome to another episode of Be a Leader podcast. We talk about current events in sports, military, and business through the lens of leadership. And we have talked about the NBA playoffs and finals. We've talked about FIFA. Now we're going to step away from sports. And we're going to talk about a conversation happening across boardrooms around the country, around the world. And that is artificial intelligence, AI. Over the past 2 years, companies have laid off hundreds of thousands of employees because of AI. And the story goes, well, the tech can do the job, so we don't need as many people anymore. This will give us better efficiency and better profits. But here's the twist, okay? There's a growing number of those same companies who are now rehiring quietly those people back. There was an article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal just this week talking about this trend, the quiet rehiring back. Forrester said that 55% of leaders now admit that their AI-driven layoffs were a mistake. And staffing firm Robert Half found that 32% of hiring managers who cut a role because of AI have already rehired for that same or similar role. And Gartner predicts that half of all AI-attributed layoffs will be reversed by 2027. So we're going to talk about 4 leadership lessons that we can learn from this AI layoff reversal. Because at the end, we lead people. As leaders, we lead people. So what can we learn? And the first lesson that I think about this is that leadership is allocation. It's not intention. Most leaders believe that people are the greatest asset because they are. Okay, people are your greatest asset. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was nothing without my Marines. As a college basketball coach, I needed my players because I scored 0 buckets. Okay, we need our people. Our people are our greatest assets. The AI layoff wave shows what companies actually value when the pressure was on. Because people didn't want to get behind. They wanted to be there in the current trend. They wanted to be ahead. They wanted to be an example to others in the markets. Let's look at Klarna. Their CEO, Sebastian, publicly claimed that the company's AI assistant was doing the work of 700 customer service agents. That was a plan. They cut the people, they used the AI, and then customer satisfaction dropped. It plummeted. And the quote that he said to Bloomberg was that the company went too far in prioritizing efficiency over service, and that led to lower quality of what they did. So then Klarna had to reverse course and had to begin rehiring. Let's look at another example. Commonwealth Bank of Australia. They cut 45 customer service roles for AI voice bots. And the bots couldn't handle real customer complaints, real customer inquiries, and CBA had to reverse the redundancies. And the quote that they had said that our initial assessment was that 45 roles were not required, but it did not adequately consider all the relevant business considerations. And this error meant that the roles were not redundant after all. Wow. Okay. Here's the main point. You don't find out what a leader actually values by what they say in an all-hands meeting or in other circumstances. You find out about what they actually value by where the budget goes. Where their time and where their money goes is a clear indication for every leader and every person, including your own life. What do you care about? Look at what your calendar looks like and look at your bank statements. Okay? That shows you what you care about. That's what I mean by leadership is allocation, not intention. Words are cheap. Okay, words are cheap. It goes on to point number 2. Conviction needs evidence, not just charisma. Okay. Klarna's CEO had total conviction that AI could replace 700 people. So conviction was not the problem. The problem was that there wasn't enough evidence yet. Okay. Robert Half believes, or in their data, shows that nearly 1 in 3 hiring managers, 32%, okay, again, 1 in 3 hiring managers who eliminated roles for AI have already rehired for the same or similar role. Okay? And Gartner predicts that half of all AI-attributed layoffs will be reversed by 2027. Okay, 2027 is right around the corner. The quote that Gartner Senior Director Analyst Kathy Ross said that most recent workforce reductions were influenced by broader economic conditions rather than automation alone. Okay, they wanted to stick with the trend. Okay, the pattern researchers that we're seeing right now is that company announces AI will do a better job at the job. They start cutting staff. 6 to 12 months happens, and then they realize that AI could maybe do 60% of the work, and then the company has to rehire the same people back. That is the pattern that we're seeing. Here's the main point. Confidence built on demo is not the same as confidence built on a track record. One is a pitch, one is a proof. For those that work with me, there's a distinction that we use, and that is grounded assessment. Assessment, you can call it like an opinion. Okay? We all have our opinions. We all have our perspectives. We all have our stories. They're valid because that's the way we see the world. But groundedness is like there's evidence attached to it. Okay? Evidence. It's like doing a pilot. What do we learn from the pilot? We do this from a test. We slowly scale, those type of things. Grounded assessments are very important as leaders. As we're trying to lead ourselves, lead others, and lead leaders, we need grounded assessments. Hype is easy. It's not what we need as leaders. Okay? Grounded assessments. And that's where we go back by conviction needs evidence, not just charisma. Let's go on to point number 3. Point number 3 and point number 4 are very important to me. And point number 3, don't confuse efficiency with effectiveness. Hey, IBM, let's go to IBM. They had something called Ask HR. And it was supposed to take the spot of many of HR requests. So IBM Ask HR Assistant was able to handle 94% of the routine HR requests. And that is actually very impressive. We talked about really maybe 60% AI can do. 94% is unbelievable. Well job, John, right? But the remaining 6% included situations that required ethical judgment. And they realized that AI couldn't close that gap. Okay? This is very important. God made us with body, mind, spirit, souls. We can make those judgment calls. We can deal with ethical decision making. AI bots can't do that. Computers can't do that. Okay? That's where right now there's a hot topic in the defense industry with weapons. Who's actually going to make the call on that strike, on that bomb dropping, on pulling that trigger? Is it going to be people? It should stay with people rather than some predictive force, right? Predictive computer. Decisions at that level with ethical decision making should rely with people, not computers, not AI. And this is what IBM realized, that when it came to those ethical, challenging questions, AI couldn't handle it. Okay? So IBM learned from this, and this is what's interesting. Rather than just rehiring people, they're really going to make this lesson useful because they are tripling its entry-level U.S. hiring across all business units in 2026. Talk about using a lesson learned. And this is what IBM CHRO Nichols said at Summit. He said, if we don't continue to invest in entry-level hires, what happens in 3 to 5 years? There's no pipeline. The well simply dries up. This is something I talk about often. I'm so passionate about this. There's a phrase that I learned in the Marine Corps, and it is, you always need fresh blood. The Marine Corps is always going to need privates on the enlisted ranks, and it's always going to need second lieutenants and its officer ranks. You need that fresh blood, people that are motivated, that can come in and do the basic tasks, that can learn what right looks like to continue the legacy. Or in the Marine Corps, we call it the esprit de corps. You got to carry that over time. Otherwise, you dry up. You lose that. Right? When I got in, it seemed at the time, an abundance of infantry officers. It was so hard to get infantry. Infantry was my number one choice, and I couldn't get it. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it. I got my second choice, which is artillery, and I weaseled my way into deploying with infantry and being with maneuver forces almost my entire time. I love maneuver. But then 5 to 10 years later, right, the needs of the Marine Corps, it goes up and down. They realized they were going to have a shortage of majors, the rank of major infantry officers. They didn't believe they were going to have enough. So then they just tried to get as many people as they could to fill that gap. And if you put it top 10, you got it. People were getting infantry that never wanted infantry because they realized that the well was drying up. You're always going to need fresh blood. Going back to IBM. Again, 94% efficiency rate is amazing. It's not the same as 100% efficiency rate. That last 6% is usually where the judgment lives. And that judgment is exactly something that you cannot automate your way around. So that's the main point. Efficiency asks, can we do things faster with less? Effectiveness asks, are we actually still getting the outcome we need? They're not the same question. Okay? I know it's obvious, but we have to say it when it comes to AI. And that leads to point number 4. That's that people are still the asset. AI is still the tool. Let's go to Ford. They recently rehired and promoted between 300 and 350 veteran engineers after they realized that their automated quality control systems was failing to catch what experienced humans could catch. Okay? These weren't just rehiring into old jobs. Okay? there was something greater here, the lesson learned. And that is they brought these people back, these experienced engineers, not only to fulfill their old roles, but also to help improve the AI systems, one, and two, to mentor the next generation of engineers that would carry the legacy of Ford into the future. Let's look at a quote from Ford VP of Vehicle Hardware Engineering, Charles Poon. He said, AI is a fantastic tool, but its effectiveness depends entirely on the quality of the data used to train it. Yeah, in other words, the tool is only as good as the judgment of the people feeding it and correcting it. If you haven't used AI, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I use AI, and I love AI because it helps me with a lot of stuff that I don't like to do. But man, is it dumb, right? I just feel like it's a super smart but super dumb tool. I constantly have to, I feel like I spend more time correcting it and giving it guidance. And I guess that's part of it, right? Because guess what? The AI tool, as good as it is, as much as information it has, it does not have the experience I had being a combat officer in the Marine Corps. It never was a college basketball coach. It never was a consultant at McKinsey & Company. It never built its own space hardware startup. It's never raised a family. It doesn't have any of those experiences. It knows a ton, but it doesn't have the experience, and it needs guidance. Garbage in, garbage out. You got to be there working with it, and that's the main point here. AI can amplify talent, but it cannot replace talent. It cannot replace leadership. It cannot replace judgment. It cannot replace years of experience that taught someone what right actually looks like. Okay. And here's a question for you. Does your team feel more valuable because of the tools that you have given them? Or do they feel more disposable? We'll come back to that question later. So let's wrap up our 4 lessons of this episode of Be a Leader podcast. For those watching the video, I do have my college basketball whiteboard here that will go over these 4 main points. And the first one is leadership is allocation. It's not intention. Klarna and Commonwealth Bank both said that people mattered. That's what they said. But what they did proved otherwise. They cut people first. Words are cheap. Budgets tell the truth. Okay, leadership is what you actually do. All right. Number 2, conviction needs evidence, not just charisma. Okay. A third of leaders who bet on AI over people have already reversed that bet. Okay, confidence without a track record is just guessing. Look for those grounded assessments. Point number 3, don't confuse efficiency with effectiveness. Okay, IBM's AI nailed 94% of the work. It's super impressive, but the last 6%, the judgment calls, they still needed human beings. Okay, fast is not the same as complete. Point number 4, people are still the assets. AI is still the tool. Again, Ford, they didn't just bring back the engineers to do the old jobs. They brought them back to make the technology better and to help the future engineers of tomorrow. That's the model, okay? Not replacement, partnership. That's the model as leaders that we should be using when it comes to AI. Okay? And again, I'll bring back that same question for you to think about these next few days before you listen to my next episode of Be a Leader podcast. Does your team feel more valuable with the tools you have given them? Or do they feel disposable? Being a leader is not about you. It's about the people that you have. Go out, ask questions, search, care, listen to them. Find out what you can, okay? Because that answer will tell you more about your leadership than any mission statement that you have on the wall. Anything that you put on your website, anything that you have your social media team put up today or tomorrow, whenever. Okay? That's what it means to be a leader. Anyways. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Be a Leader podcast. Please give it a 5-star or a like, whatever you're listening or watching this. Please share it with someone that could find this useful. Okay? And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's your biggest takeaway about AI, about the layoffs, about the rehiring, about the future, about being a great leader when it comes to AI? I'd love to hear your thoughts because as we converse, that's how we learn. That's how we get better, become better leaders. And with that, again, thank you for watching this episode of Be a Leader podcast. And remember, whether you're leading yourself, leading others, or leading leaders, be a leader. My name is Daniel Pinedo. Thank you, and until next time.